Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're going to be doing another issue review. Today we're going to be looking at Dawnrunner number 2 by Ram V, Evan Teagle, with Dave Stewart and Aditya Bidikar as the team working on it. And in terms of like progression from the last issue, there's a lot, mostly in terms of characters and world building. And there's also progression in the sense that I feel like there's less issues to be had with some of the paneling that I had last time, right? So last time I mentioned that the blocking for the, mecha and kaiju scenes was a bit rough. There's a few less scenes like that here. Like overall, there's less kaiju versus robot scenes. But I think that the ones that there are still complex without having some of those like unclearness issues that I saw last time, right? I mean, there might be one, but out of the 3 or 4 scenes that there are total, that's less than last time, where I basically felt like the whole issue had issues with blocking, right? So I think that that's better. Hopefully that continues to get better as the book goes on. But in terms of like the actual plot line, let's actually talk about that now. So it basically opens up with Anita, Mara, the main character, and she's wearing this like hazmat suit, right? And she has a little girl sitting in her lap that looks exactly like her, and she's talking to the little girl, right? And she's being really gentle with her, and it turns out that this girl is her daughter, right? And the girl sees her mother go through these fights, and they talk about it to try to make sure that the girl doesn't feel afraid, right? And they're in this really beautiful landscape that doesn't really look real, and it turns out that it might not be. I'm not really sure actually, because some men show up later, also wearing hazmat suits, and tell Anita that it's time to go, that Annie needs to go back to the doctor because they can't risk contaminating her even more, right? So it seems like this little girl has some sort of like disease, right? She has some inability to defend herself, like her body can't fix itself, right? So this is really sad and concerning, right? And it turns out that Anita basically just works to make sure that her daughter can survive, right? And so that kind of puts an interesting spin to things when her boss, the guy from Corden Industries, shows up in a limousine, tells her to get on, and then they start talking, right? And this guy feigns interest in Anita's relationship with Annie and making sure that the girl is good. But Anita quickly is like, dude, shut the fuck up. You don't actually care. You're just here because you're mad that I didn't make sure that your robot looked awesome from the beginning. What the hell do you want? And they talk about that. And basically it turns out that this guy, I can't remember his name. Let's see if I wrote it down here. Lester, basically is upset that she ruined the display of this new IK, right? However, it's not really her fault. And he tells her, okay, we made up this story. Basically, we're saying that it was all done on purpose, that we made sure that the robot reacted this way in order to make it more interesting for the masses, right? I'm not really sure how anyone believes that, but okay. And it seems like it's what they're rolling with, and it works. But Anita is kind of upset about this, and Lester is as well, because he basically lost face with all the other people that were watching the thing with him, right? And so they part ways, and then Anita goes back to the IK, right? She goes to it. She basically wants to know what the fuck is going on, and she talks to her friend. And her friend is like, look, I can't really tell you anything. You can't go back in there. It's dangerous. But here is who this guy is, right? The person that you saw, right? And she gives her information about this guy. And it turns out that this guy was a soldier. He had, he had some issue. He died, and they preserved his brain. And then they used it as the basis for the computing power necessary for this robot. Basically, it's kind of like a Pacific Rim, right? 2 people need to combine their mental capacities through the drift in order to make sure that they can pilot this machine, right? However, in this case, it's a little bit different. The pilot is in control. The robot is slaved to the pilot. And the robot is based on a human brain in order to make sure that the computing power and the what's it called, the reaction time is on par with what's necessary in order to actually fight with one of these things, right? Which is more or less the only actual problem, or like, well, one of the two major problems with giant robots, right? If you were to make a giant robot in real life, the square cube law would fuck you up, right? Because things can't like exponentially grow in a certain way in a certain body plan without crumbling, right? So like giant robots that look like humans are basically impossible. And the other thing is that how do you make it react fast enough to do anything, right? Because basically anything that has to push that much weight would be impossible to move quickly, right? But you know, because it's a sci-fi, they managed to bridge that gap in some way. Turns out that they need a human computing system, and so they stuff a person's brain into the robots, right? And so that's basically kind of what happens there, kind of what Anita learns, right? But because she can't go back in, she can't actually solve the problem she's having with Takeda, right? Or the problem that she faced the first time. And so she doesn't want to ride this Iron King again. She doesn't want to ride Dawnrunner again because she doesn't trust the machine, right? And that's actually quite meaningful. I get that. And then so she leaves. She's kind of upset with her friend, it seems like. And then this other guy, his name is Murali Vasan, right? And he's like, I heard everything you said. I can help you. I can let you in. I need you to give me the data that you find, though, because it's like useful for his project, right? Because her friend, Anita's friend, is a mechanic, and she's basically in charge of like how Anita reacts to the robot and how the pilot feels at any time, right? So there was a moment where Anita was going into this memory. She was going through the drift, and basically it seems like she essentially disappeared. Like she wasn't there, even though everything was reading as if she was, right? And so her friend is really upset about this. Which is why she doesn't want Anita to go through this drifting process again. However, the Musali guy is like, I'm in charge of figuring out their language, and I have no data, so I need you to give me some data. And I can do that. I can get that data while you talk to Takeda about what the fuck is going on, right? So he helps her drift in, and she interacts with him, and Takeda is aware. He's like, what the hell are you doing here, right? Like, why are you here? And then they go together through this, barren wasteland, trying to find Takeda's children. He's trying to get somewhere to see if he can find his family. He gets somewhere. It turns out that his family is not there. He starts crying. And then out of the rubble, his children come out, right? And so this is where the chapter ends. And it's quite good. I actually really liked it. I thought that ending, that cliffhanger-esque kind of ending, was quite enjoyable, quite good. I really liked it. I really like the art style here. I think it's really, really good. It's very different from what I'm used to. But there's a certain level of, like, beauty that is significantly higher than, your average comic book. And I think that that's quite good. In terms of the story, I think it was a bit convoluted. There's a lot of conversations happening here that were more or less about the same thing, but from radically different perspectives. And that kind of muddied the water a bit for me. Like, it wasn't linear enough to be easy to, like, flip through. I had to actually, like, take my time to pay attention with it, or to it. And that is, different from what I usually feel like when I'm reading comic books, right? But, I think that's not necessarily a negative. It's actually kind of a positive, right? That you're actually having to engage properly with the material. That's good. But it might be different from what you're used to, especially if you're just used to, superhero comics, where it's like, okay, bad guy, fight bad guy, finish thing. Maybe someone does a quip or, a mean thing, or someone says something cool, and then you move on, right? Like, this has a little bit more to it than that. And so it might be different from your average comic book in that sense. But it's pretty, easy to follow anyways. It's just a bit more convoluted than before. And I like it. I think it's good. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Dawnrunner. Sorry. Had to accentuate that properly. Dawnrunner, Volume 2 by Ram V and Evan Cagle, right? So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys later.